Good evening. My name is Sagaraguna. I'm a resident monk from U.S. Zen Institute from Germantown. The U.S. Zen Institute had been there for over a decade, but it was previously predominantly a Mahayana temple until recently we have a new abbot which extended the original teaching from Mahayanism into more Theravada tradition, including introducing the meditative element into it. For myself, about 2 months ago, I have started my own little series of talk because I have somehow become a frequent talker in the IBAA study group. So I've decided to make it in a systematic talk that, as you can see here, I have chosen the novices questions. This was picked up from the Kotaka Nikaya, that, as you know, Kotaka Nikaya was assembled, compiled, the latest after the 4 Nikayas being completed. And so both the most ancient and most recent texts not included in those 4 Nikayas ended up in the Kotaka Nikaya, 3 volumes. And the first volume includes 7 most ancient texts that are similar to those of the 4 Nikaya, both in terms of its discourses, its doctrines, and its grammatical style. One of them here is the so-called novices questions. Legend has it that the Buddha initiated 10 questions to a young boy. As you know, in Buddhism, usually you have to become an adult before you are permitted to seek ordination. But in that particular example, this little boy did something extraordinary that Buddha granted him the ordination. But before that, he asked 10 questions. And of course, legend has it that this little boy gave a splendid answer. And eventually that becomes our topic here. It's so-called increased by 1 factor. Essentially, what is 1? That was 2 months ago. I started with that 1. The answer is that all beings will survive on the basis of nutriments. Food, if you will, spiritual food as well. And what is 2? Namarupa, that all beings essentially composed with 2 components, the physicality, mentality, so to speak, although it's more complicated than that. And today, for my part, I'm continuing with this series. What is 3? Three, it deals with feelings. Although I must say upfront that the direct translation, the English translation of feeling, although it's quite close to the meaning, it does not convey the context. I'll explain what later. And I also have to point out up front that the reason that after what is 2, Namarupa, the Buddha directly asked him about what is 3, and the answer is feeling. It has very important meditative implications. And to also highlight that what is 4 then, you might be interested to know. 4 directly linked to the 4 Noble Truths. And then directly, what is 5? 5 aggregates. If you want to understand the 3 feelings, you have to draw from the 5 aggregates and the 4 Noble Truths, combining on the meditative practices. So they are all bounded together. But for the pedagogical purposes, I've separated session by session so that we can absorb it gradually. All right, so here we are. What is 3? There's 3 types of feeling. And for those of you who can recognize the Chinese character, 和云三,三受之谓也. Okay, essentially that means 3 modes or 3 types of feeling. I use 2 translations. And actually, the three modes of feeling is closer to the Pali, original Pali meaning. The three types, which sounds static, passive, okay, that's somewhat misleading. All right, so that's three. Let's deal with it today. Vedana, both the same, Pali, Sanskrit. Also, for little information to you, in the Sanskrit, there is no V sound. So Vedana is in English, it's not entirely wrong, but really it's Vedana, like you pronounce we. Okay, it's Vedana. It means feeling or sensation. When being used as a noun, it's sensation. But the original Pali context refers to feel. Vedana actually refers to a process to feel. So feeling is the ongoing process of to feel. Sensation then is the result of that process. Now, of course, you have to read the original comment, for example, the Visuddhivanga, to understand that. But reading the English translation, although it gives you outright a simple answer, you may miss that important context. All right. I've just mentioned that it has very important meditative implications. I believe most of you have heard about the so-called 4 foundations of mindfulness. In the United States, we had numerous so-called insight meditation centers that were essentially teaching so-called mindfulness. And the 4 mindfulness will be on, as you can see in that sequence, body, sensation, feeling, that is, mental formation, and phenomena. I have just mentioned that the novice's question, part 2, asks you what is 2? Nama Rupa, that's body. In the 4 foundation of mindfulness training, your first mindfulness would be contemplating this body, which essentially separated into Nama Rupa. And you will have to directly see in the reality as it is. Then you can move on into the next contemplation, feelings. So that's how important it is. I really cannot emphasize it more, okay, that we talk about feelings. And although doctrinal interpretation would be describing Vedana as essentially a mental phenomenon, but this is a tricky one, okay? Because the origin of feeling must from the physical part. You have to have the physical sense organs, the eye making contact with an object, and then give rise to consciousness. That's a physical foundation. Although the feeling after, say, I am seeing this microphone, okay, then it may give rise to feelings. I say, okay, I like it, pleasant feeling. I don't like it, unpleasant feeling. Well, it's just an object, neutral, still a feeling, okay? So our feeling will be directly based on that physical contact direct from your sense organs. So there is a tiny part of it is physical, but it's predominantly mental. So to understand the free feeling, you have to understand the 5 aggregates. This is where the senses organs receive the information and create subsequently the feelings. So as you can see, for a short introduction, the original term would be skandhas, piling up, okay, getting together, the 5 aggregates. That means forms, feelings, concept, volitional formation, and consciousness. All these have their physical parts as a foundation. It still lists feeling as a very important part. So, up front, it would be really, really important. I cannot emphasize this more, that this is of the utmost importance. Those of you who are familiar with Nikaya, the largest volume, Samyutta Nikaya, has spent an entire section, entire magga, okay, talking about feeling, Vedana. And it contains numerous of sutras to make sense for the learners. that under different contexts, how do you understand Vedana? If you're interested in that, go ahead. It will help you a lot improving your own meditation. Right. Before we move on to that part, because today we're not talking about meditation technique after all, but it's very essential that we bring this up. So Vedana is a central piece of information or concept linking to view formation, in particular to self. This is where it is on the entire path of enlightenment. That originally you have delusion, you have ignorance, you don't know the reality. The end is enlightenment. What is the most crucial, critical stage in between? That would be this. Understand feeling as exactly what they are. And why is it that it's central to view formation? The Buddha himself stated, I believe in Samyutta Nikaya, one of the sutras, that everything converges on feeling. Without feeling, the I idea, the I formation would not be arising. Only if and only when you have feeling that you have this I formation, I, myself, okay, not that I. The implication is then, without feeling, without properly understanding the reality of feeling, you may have the false conception that, oh, now I have feeling, then there must be an I. Then you are being tricked. Okay, so that's how important it is that you have to understand that it's not that like that. Yes, go ahead.
So is consciousness related to the I formation, or is it independent of the I formation?
Consciousness is a product that the physical eye, the nerves, if you will, making contact with an object. At that point, the consciousness being created. Without this crucial contact, there is no such thing as I consciousness, as well as other consciousness. So it is itself a product. Then that coincides with the dependent origination. With this arises, that arises. With this ceases, that ceases. Yes?
How about people born blind?
That's a different issue. That according to Abhidhamma, okay, the very fact that you can see and actually your sense organ making contact with the object to enable you to see requires 7 or more conditions. One of them being that the base, the sense base, is intact, undamaged. And then there must be an object with light, okay? And then you have to be able to make sense with it. The environment, all these will have to converge. So blind, meaning one of those conditions is missing. How and exactly why, that's a different matter. That answer the question? Okay, yes?
But that would include any one of the senses, right? So it wouldn't just be the eyes seeing, but the ears,
Yeah.
the hands touching,
That's right.
the sensation of the tongue,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
feeling
All-
against the skin.
Yes.
All of those
All
different
those.
sensations would be involved in this, realization of
Yes.
self and consciousness, right?
Yeah, we call it the 6 internal bases, making contact with 6 external objects, give rise to 6 different types of consciousness, back to your question. But we're not talking about Abhidhamma today, so I have skipped that part, but I'm glad you pointed that out. Okay, all right. Chaplain, you seem still puzzled. Did I answer your question?
No,
Right?
I'm
See,
thinking about it.
the thing
Yes.
is, the blind issue, with permission of the Venerable, is that's where the karma factor comes in. See, that is why that blindness has taken place, is something that that individual has done
I
in
see.
either in the immediate past or in the remote past.
I see.
So that's the reason why that person became blind. So there's the ethical factor involved in there. So
Okay.
that's the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the most general, accessible way,
Okay.
although it may not always be the case. Yeah, so, yeah. So I have also mentioned during my previous presentation that the Nikaya tradition has an established pattern that when they are trying to make sense and try to highlight a very important concept, they will guide learners through 3 stages. First, to present to you what is the taste of that particular phenomena, and then what is the peril of that phenomena, and how to abandon the peril. So now we are explicating the case of sensations. Let's first make sense with what is the taste of sensation. The taste is that I've just mentioned that there will be 3 modes. We'll come to that later. But really, we need to bring it up exactly right now. Suppose, like I said, all right, I have just taken this really lovely drink and say I like it. The peril is that the taste itself would give rise to, on top of a feeling, your mental reaction to that feeling. Let me say that again. You drink this, your tongue tastes something. That is a neutral feeling. But then quickly you will decide whether this is a pleasurable feeling or unpleasant feeling. So-called pleasant or unpleasant actually is an added emotion. That comes from your mental formation. Okay, this is a very crucial part. Right, once this is clarified, suppose I like this taste. I think this is enjoyable. What is the peril of it? Chances are you may want more. I want more, I want more, and more, and more. Say you are, so you like cocaine, okay, that would be a perfect example. You got addicted. Okay. So the peril would be craving. It gives rise to craving. Mark my words, I'm not saying that something, this, suppose the taste of this is pleasant. I would not deny and saying, arguing this is unpleasant. No. What we want to blame is not the pleasant flavor per se, but your attachment to that feeling. That is the part need to be blamed. Okay? So, the role of feeling in the early Buddhist analysis of reality was significant. All phenomena converge on feeling. For your information, you can find it in the Anguttara Nikaya. Okay? Of course, you can also find similar examples in the Samyutta Nikaya. As one example, as I have just explained, craving is a peril. And of course, yeah, as you can imagine, that if you decided that the taste is unpleasant, that you want to reject it, and you do this repeatedly, there will be an aversion. And then the peril would be anger. Okay? So you can relate to other examples. So such peril should be avoided. And I'm using a judgmental term, should be. Meaning, all right, suppose, what if I just like it? It's your choice. Buddhism never coerces people to do something. We just show you that this is the reality, this is the flavor, this is the peril of the flavor. This would be a good choice that had been made by the wise people, and we recommend you also follow the same path. But if you don't find it plausible or feasible, so be it. Okay? So, such peril should be avoided initially and eventually be abandoned completely. By means of abandon, again, you have to go back to meditative practices that upon seeing in reality, with your meditative achievement, you know that they are impermanent, there's nothing to be grasped onto, then you would abandon them automatically, voluntarily. Okay? So the antidote from a meditative point of view is that the activation of underlying tendency, those of you who can read Chinese character, that means underlying tendency, it would drive you to do something without your knowing it. Okay? The antidote, you don't want that to actually control you. So what you can do about it? It would be mindful observation of the nature of any feeling that has risen. Now, preferably, you can do this from moment to moment, 24 hours a day, the whole year. But of course, we know that not very likely for anybody, okay? But at least during your meditative practices, and hopefully, gradually, it will spill over into your daily life. All right, so conceptually, this is a summation of taste, and then we'll engage a little bit even more analytic way of understanding feeling, the Abhidharmic way. The nature. Like I just said, a part of it originated from a physical base. Essentially, your sense organs, the eye, the nose, the ear, the tongue, the body, they are receivers. If you liken it with the radio receiver, it would be really work in a similar way, okay? You receive the signal, then you have to decode it. Then decoding will be your volitional formation based on your concept. But right now, let's just understand that they are receivers. And the receiver have to make one crucial motion, making contact with an object for that receiver to work. Back to Chaplin's question. Suppose you have good eye. Suppose you have good eye consciousness. Suppose you are in a room, you have physical object, but what if there's no light? You still don't see things. So it is crucial that making contact with all the right conditions to make it happen, right? That's feeling. And then, since making contact would give rise to feeling, this clearly indicating to the orientation of the whole thing is about how, not the end product, okay? So you see the root of it is, see that it's germ, knowing, feeling, experiencing, and use function as an adjective to modify the end product of feeling. Okay, so it's an ongoing process. On the basis of that physical sense, the organs, then you have the mental reaction against that particular contact. Indeed, we had just briefly touched upon the idea of consciousness. Among all those different types of consciousnesses, one individual consciousness would have at least 7 different kinds of mental formations, wherein feeling would always be there. It's one of them. It's always there. Okay, you could have more, but feeling must be there. So it's a motion, you have contact, you have the sense basis, and then the mental reactions. That having said, what is the absolutely specific characteristic of Vedana? If you want to summarize it, you can say this: it is to experience. Instead of experiences or feelings, the absolute specific character of Vedana is to experience, and it's an ongoing process. So that is to say, in any experience, what we experience is the individual maturation. It could be fast, it could be a longer process of any positive or negative action as a final result. Why I'm spending this much time engaging every one of you into this kind of seemingly tedious analytic analysis, explanation of Vedana? Because as of now, step-by-step understanding will help you when you are doing the full mindfulness meditation to looking inside your mind, okay, step by step, and knowing what is happening. If you haven't been engaging in any type of meditation or full mindfulness for foundation of mindfulness, you may not understand how important it is, but take my word for it for now, okay? So sensations, therefore, are defined as impressions. That's it, mental impression. The Visuddhimagga listed that there are at least 108, okay, could be more, but at least 108 different modes of Vedana. As you can see, it also uses the term modes, meaning different type of action and reaction, instead of passive categories. So far so good? Anyone questions? Okay. Shall we move on? Okay. Right? Objects have their own taste, as I just mentioned, at least 3 types of them: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Each contains a different original term. Now it's easier to understand what is pleasant and unpleasant. Okay, even though it may be subjective, so be it. You still have that broad category of pleasant or unpleasant. What I want to emphasize instead is on the third type, so-called neutral. Well, you are seeing this object. You don't like it, you don't dislike it. What's the big deal? Now, I just mentioned that deep down, people have that particular tendency, so-called potential tendency. I've just mentioned that. The big deal about something is neutral, that you ignore it. Okay? I don't care about its existence. Okay? It's here. So I'll pretend, even though I do see it, I'll pretend this doesn't exist. That, having said, you will ignore a very essential part of the entirety of reality. You don't know exactly what it is. And if there are lots of things in your life, you take it for granted, you think this is daily routine, it does not deserve your attention, then you have accumulated a lot of what? Ignorance. You don't know what is happening in your life. And that eventually will contribute to a great extent of your overall so-called ignorance. We don't say ignorance in the sense that you don't have knowledge, you don't have degree. No, not in that sense. But you are being ignorant of exactly what is happening at the right moment, right now. What is happening to your mind and body, nama rupa. You're being ignorant to that. And that can be exacerbated by ignoring something routine. So, to be aware of that neutral feeling, believe me, it's not that easy, okay? You have to really sit down and calm your mind for quite a long time before you can notice that exactly what neutral feeling is.
And you're saying you're being ignorant of all the processes around you, or no? Well,
You still hear it? Yes, uh-huh. And then,
processes
yes,
surrounding you.
they come and go very quickly, and then you have to note their arising, the cessation, and then also mark the taste of it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was it neutral? And imagine how fast it is. And that's why mindfulness is so important. Okay? All right. So the neutral feeling, pay special attention to it. Okay? Pleasant, unpleasant is easier to note, easier to mark. There will be, so you have 3 modes, okay? And then there will be 6 classes, as we have already touched upon. You have the eye, nose, ear, tongue, and body, and of course the pure mental. So the 6 internal sense bases making contact with 6 external objects, and then give rise to 6 different consciousness. That would be already 18 types. And then if you time to the 18 different types of Vedana applying to monastics and applying to lay people, that time too, 36 different modes. If you, based on that 36 different modes times to past, present, future, that will be 108. That's how the number comes into being, 108 of them. So, this is a very short and brief abidomic analysis to help you understand the flavor, the peril, and how to avoid it. How to avoid it then? You may also notice that in the Nikaya tradition, they may spend a lot of time, pages, paragraph, to give you a detailed, comprehensive analysis. But when it comes to operation, they would always give you the simplest operable simile. Okay, that's the long tradition, and it's a good one. So here is the simile. Assuming you have noted all 108 different modes of Vedana, how do you deal with it? The simile here is that treat them as all the visitors in the guest house. They come, they go, they come, they go. Some stays longer, some would just overnight, some would be just an instant, and some wouldn't even go into the guest house. Okay? So that boils down to one fundamental concept: impermanent. They come, they go. The implication then is that since they are impermanent, I have just mentioned that the peril of Vedana is that it may give rise to a craving, thinking that since something's being felt, there must be an I. Okay? So the thing is that once you understand they always come and go, you should be very cautious, be mindfully alerting yourself. There is no need to become agitated or obsessed with a particular feeling. One mosquito bit you. There's a sensation on your skin. That is a neutral feeling. Whether you say ouch and then ignore the feeling, or whether you become really agitated, I'm gonna kill you, okay? That would be added emotion. Here, the crucial point is that you need to almost force yourself initially that understanding they come and go. There is no need to add extra information or emotion onto it. Professor Herbart just brought out a very important idea of karma. Where does karma come from? You repeat a certain motion with certain fixed emotion. That's karma. If you always, after the mosquito bit you, you always give rise to that agitation and say, I'm gonna kill you. That would be a serious karma, no matter how tiny that insect is. Okay? So be cautious about that. All right? So the function of Vedana is sitting right here. On the one hand, it needs another condition to give rise to it. Contact, as we have just mentioned. On the other hand, at this particular juncture, itself also serves as condition to the next reaction, craving, among other things. The original term was tanha. Okay, so if we link them in line of motion, here are the formula. If something is pleasant, you want more. Eventually, it gives rise to greed. Greed, if you go back to the 12 dependent origination, is the very origin of samsara. You want to live, you want to have another life, you want to live forever. Okay, that's a strong tanha. That would give rise to greed, and that would drive you into the endless samsara. Okay, if it's unpleasant, you tend to reject it, and then the mental quality will be repulsion, aversion, and of course, it would be a very strong impediment to impede you from gaining enlightenment. If it's neutral, as I have just mentioned, which is important, you tend to neglect it. Eventually, it gives rise to ignorance. Meaning, mental impressions can cause gladness, sadness, or neutral feeling. And in the absence of any feeling, the notion I am will not arise. With this understanding, it will help you to also accept the notion of so-called non-self. Okay? Question?
Yeah, looking at that flow chart of arrows,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to comment in context, neglect and reject. They seem kind of very similar, or what do you want us to get the difference from that? They seem kind of similar words, very synonymous, but they're not.
They're not. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you elaborate, please?
Thank you. All right. So to understand that statement, that line of motion better, let's use another simile. What if, say, what's the peril? Assuming, all right, so I am grasping this feeling. I think that this feeling is fine. I want to believe that it is really, there is something as I. What's the peril of that notion? The simile is like this. You are being carried away by a strong mountain current. And so strong that you're pretty sure you'll be drowned. And then you'll try to grasp that weak grass at the river bank. And because the current is so strong, what happens? The grass snaps. There's no more. And what happened? Now, that thing, that self, okay, it's no more. You become frightened, disappointed, desperate, and then you want to grasp another one. That's a very strong tomahawk. What's the end result? You are being carried away by that strong current forever. That's samsara. Okay, so that is the simile linking to the idea of grasping feeling as I. That's the peril of it. We are not condemning any people who tries to do that. Before you are enlightened, we all have that tendency to grasp something, okay? Sometimes you do that consciously, and you understand in the peril, and then you try not to do that. Most of the time, if you're not mindful enough, you just do it unconsciously, okay? It's a habit. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here, okay? We're still in the current of samsara. So feeling is without entity. The very essential or intrinsic nature of feeling is emptiness. Okay, if we employ the Mahayana notion, it does not have an entity. It's a product of condition. This is the reality. Another simile is that suppose you have accepted my interpretation, and then you have accepted the idea that even if there are strong feelings that you believe can be grasped onto, but you have decided to abandon it. How do we describe that? People who try to grasp something, they will be putting themselves seemingly into a bottomless pit. Okay, it's bottomless, so it's always fear, strong fear. Where am I going to stand? There is no place I can stand. But if you have understood and accepted notion that there's non-self, that feeling is just a conditioned product, then even if you are facing with bottomless pit, you will find yourself standing on solid ground. It's a mental reflection. The Buddha himself, then following these similes, give very, very practical instructions about how to maintain that mindset so that you can find a place to stand in the bottomless pit. A sutra in the, I believe, Samyutta Nikaya, talking about two arrows. That's not a stuffed animal. That's real dog being shot by a dart. Fortunately, the dog survived. Okay. The thing is, feeling, say, if assuming you were really literally being shot by an arrow, There will be physical pain, unpleasant, no doubt. We don't deny that. Buddha's advice is that, all right, is it more important for you to try to remove that error or that thought, or for you to start complaining, for you to start frightening yourself? What am I going to do? Am I going to die? Okay? That kind of strong emotion on the basis of the first physical feeling will be the second dart or second arrow. And the implication is that second arrow is always shot by yourself. And Buddha's advice is that please do not do it. First arrow is bad enough. Do not try to shoot yourself with the second arrow. Those of you who have some experiences in meditative practices, you can certainly understand this, that after, say, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, the legs, they're killing you. It's already bad enough. Why keep on telling yourself, why am I torturing myself by doing this? Okay? Either way, you can benefit from such training, or through the same process, you can also engender an unwholesome mental quality in yourself. Do you want this way, the wholesome quality, or the other way, second yourself a second arrow? That would be your choice. The idea that feeling is central to the whole idea of I am, or this is I, is not specific to Buddhism. And as you can see, I have quoted here a very famous German poet used to say, feel is everything. Meaning, the I feeling in particular. You want to feel good, feel I am being in control, then you need to have that feel. And to be honest, throughout history, many heroic deeds or unheroic deeds were precisely based on that kind of feeling. Okay, you want to feel good, feel being respected. Okay, then you engage yourself to do some unbelievable things. The Buddha then also pointed out that all aggregate, all things converge on feelings. Granted, most people will be spending their life, even though unconsciously, trying to avoid unpleasant feeling and trying to seek more pleasant feelings. Like I just mentioned earlier, that something pleasant, say this particular drink is tasty, okay? We don't deny that, even though it's subjective. The thing blamable is that you, upon feeling this is tasty, you like it, you then indulge yourself, allow yourself to say and to feel, I want more, I want more, I want more. That part is your own responsibility. And that's the part we want to avoid. So this is the deeper meaning for Buddha to say that all things converge on feeling. Contemplating on the reality of feeling would give you the opportunity to abandon samsara and achieving enlightenment. That's the crucial stage. So as a concluding remark, because I believe today I have engaged a little bit too much Abhidharmic analysis for all of you, so let's conclude on this. At the beginning, I have mentioned that you have to incorporate your own meditative practices with the doctrinal understanding of feeling, Vedana. So the contemplation of feeling is this. First, the last statement, make sure the traditional English expression, that so-called mixed feeling. I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. from a Buddhist doctrinal point of view, that's not likely. At any particular given moment, your consciousness would only contain one particular feeling. It just happened, okay, that it taking turns so quickly that you seem to believe you have a mixed feeling towards something. No, it's always about, at this moment, it's either pleasant, unpleasant, or you didn't feel anything. Mark my words, the moment you say you didn't feel anything, that's not doctrinally correct. You actually feel something. You feel as if you don't feel anything. You feel a felt. You felt a feel. Let's put it this way, okay? You felt a very, very non-feeling, a dull sensation. That's how you feel. Okay? That's neutral feeling. It's not non-feeling, okay? That's important. So that's what you need to contemplate. First, notice the physical sensation, then mark your mental reaction to that physical sensation, and then doctrinally differentiate whether your reaction is being on the right path. So in the contemplation of feeling, there should first be a mindful awareness of the feeling, knowing that it exists when they arise, and you should also clearly distinguish them as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, respectively. Hopefully, that, as you know, that in the U.S. Zen, our abbot, Venerable Tummaprateip, hold very regular meditative teachings, that you have the opportunity eventually learning from the four foundations of mindfulness from him. You'll be able to verify whether these doctrines are helpful to your meditative practices. Okay, I'll just stop here. Any question and comment? All right, and the professor has the podium.
Thank you, Anand.
So